What up, ladies and gentlemen? This is your boy Big Dewey J, and you are listening to A Different Shade of Purple. Um, I did temporarily rename my channel to Men's Help Channel, but as of this time, I'm just going to be honest with you. I do not know what I can do in order to help men, but I can even help myself. Um, for the rest of my videos, you're going to see me um, talking over some gameplay that I have set up, mostly with my Switch 2, mostly me sucking, but still having fun. Um, but yeah, this is going to be my new format for a while until I'm able to, actually find the time to set up and be able to create, better videos or whatever, and actually learn the software that I'm using. So that's part of the plan. Right now, I want to talk about progressivism. Okay, I'm going to kind of treat this video as a bit of, uh, like, say, a rough draft. Okay, that's how I'm going to do it. It's going to be a bit of a rough draft. Um, and the reason why that I'm treating it as a rough draft is because I plan on saying some more meaningful stuff later on in the future. You know, and actually do some research and you know come up with some more coherent thoughts. But as of right now, I'm treating this as a rough draft, and I'm just getting some of my feelings out there, and just see how people treat it. We are basically looking at a crisis in this country. And the number one reason why we are looking at a crisis is basically because when we look at issues, we don't see them as a human issue. We see it as a male issue or a female issue or a white issue or a black issue, right? We don't look at things as a human issue. And to be honest with you, I'll be honest with you. I kind of find it funny when I sit here and look at the so-called progressive movement, and I think from here on out I'm going to call it the so-called progressive movement. And the reason why that I'm going to call it that is because so-called progressives, you got to have an understanding that you can't pick and choose who you're understanding towards, who you're considerate towards, right? You can't sit here and say that this certain group is going to be our primary focus and everybody else can just go f off. Like one of the main things that I see with the with this so-called progressive movement is that like especially with men, and I'm going to really kind of hone in on men here when it comes down to progressivism, because if y'all take a look at this last like this past election Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, and I may have to be corrected, but if I'm not mistaken, when you look at gender, there was a male problem. There was a male problem. And if the F word that we're going to, maybe I won't get, it's so much demonetized or, shadow banned would be using this term this late into the video with fascism. If if it wasn't such along the lines of race, there would be a real problem in this country. There would be a real problem in this country. You would begin to see a lot of men having absolutely no problem voting for the Republican Party. And there's a reason for that. I'm going to tell y'all, at the beginning, I told you, I said you can't, pick and choose um, who you consider it towards, who you're going to be progressive towards. But that's what these people have actually have done. They basically taken a look and say if you're a straight man, we'll accept you, but you're gonna have to get to the back of the bus. And I'm going to tell you something. No self-respecting person is going to lower themselves just so that they can be a part of a community. No self-respecting person is going to stick their neck out for a community that they would never have a place in. And every time you start to hear, like, these talking points about, especially coming from women, and other people, coming from the progressives, both men and women included, right? Talking about the male loneliness epidemic. It's always as though it's somehow a personal feeling, right? It's somehow always a personal feeling because as a man, you always have had it so easy in society. But that has not been the case. Men in general have not had things easy in society. What has been the issue is that men and women have had different challenges, but they're challenges nonetheless. And because you refuse to acknowledge those things, because you don't want to look at it as those things, and because a lot of people who talk about these issues, especially when it comes to men, they tend to look at it and want to laugh at men as though somehow it means that they're winning. Now what you end up with is, what a lot of people don't realize is you're in a much more tenuable position than you really think. As of right now, and I'm just going to be honest, um, we may end up, because of how bad Republicans are doing and how bad Trump is, just messing up this economy, and there be some type of political reckoning for some people in office. But in time, we're going to go right back to the issues that we've had before. And the issues that we had before was issues concerning gender. And, when you sit here, you talk about the male loneliness epidemic and how, certain people have, been laughing, especially, people, um, in the rainbow community and with women, because, somehow it means that, again, they have this idea that it means that they're winning and they're better than us. You'll come to the realization that people who are lonely and they feel they don't have a place in a community or in a society, they're not going to stand up for you. They're not going to stand up for you. A lot of people on the left, a lot of these progressives, they all constantly talk about, bringing back communism, the old ghost of communism, where we get the term community from, and it's one of the reasons why we constantly have, um, you know, why it does constantly come back because of the need, people realizing that they have a need for community, and they also talking about socialism and how it's beginning to you know pick up because people understand that we have a need to capture the means of production, right? So that we can be able to earn higher wages and have safer working conditions, and have better work-life balance, you know, and be able to afford things better and actually be able to have families, be able to actually raise families, right? Actually have an opportunity to have things that would be very beneficial to everybody. Like, actually be able to have, instead of a 5-day work week, a 4-day work week, These are great ideas. These are stupendous ideas. Okay. Being able to have the same things that other countries have. Like, being able to have 2 weeks paid time off as soon as you start a job. You automatically have that. That would be something that I could, easily benefit from, because I myself have medical issues. Okay, that is something that I could, have greatly benefited from. But there's an issue, and whenever, especially more conservative, more conservative minded men, hear you start talking about these things, they get to thinking and say, you know something, and especially when they start looking at some of the facts, they know that men in general, men are going to have a tendency to work more and earn more, and women especially are going to have a tendency to benefit from it. Now, herein lies the problem. Because this is where I'm going to begin to try to make the case where those on the left have really messed up. Because remember what I said at the beginning of this video, where I said that the progressive movement, or at least I think I said it, the progressive movement has really been set up to really benefit those in the rainbow community and women. Okay? They think these ideas are great. But you take a look at the men who are quote unquote lonely and are going through a tough time. Well, do you think these men are going to be standing with the very people who look down on them in order to put in the groundwork in order to make these changes happen? Think about it. See, this is what I'm trying to get people to see when I say that these are human issues, right? These are human issues. This is not just a male issue. This is not an issue that exists in isolation. And when you can come to understand that these issues do not exist in isolation and they directly affect you, because it takes away from the manpower that you can have in order to make progress on the very issues that you care about. Now you begin to see how it can greatly affect you, how it can delay progress on issues that we so desperately need to, you know, on issues that we so desperately need that we can benefit from, right? Because, I mean, what do you mean that we live in a country, in what is supposedly the richest country on earth, but mothers and fathers cannot take off of work so that they can go be with their child for the first year of their life? What do you mean that we live in supposedly the richest country on earth, but people are going broke because of medical debt, and they're paying 2 to 3 times what other people would pay in other countries, yet have worse health outcomes? Don't you think it would be in your best interest to, instead of making content where you make fun of these men in their suffering, you take a look at it from a human lens and you actually try to reach out to these men and you don't actually insult them by saying that they need to be more like women, but actually encourage the very positive traits that you find in masculinity, that you find in manhood, in order to try to bring these men out so that you can have more of a unified front, so that we can begin to have, so that we can begin to live in a nation that benefits us. Think about it. If you're not willing to take a look at an issue and say that it's a human issue, that something has changed, and that we need to start bringing these people with us so that we can begin to initiate the positive change that we all can benefit from, then you might as well just shut it down. You're never going to see any progress on the issues that you care about. And that means for women, you're never going to see any progress on issues like, say, reproductive rights. You're never going to be able to see progress um, on improvements in medical care. I mean, a lot of you are going to begin to see more and more, say, dead women uh, being used to incubate babies. Y'all remember that black woman who um, they forced to use her dead corpse in order to continue to nurture a baby. You're going to see more and more of that. You're going to see more and more of you not being able to afford health care. You're going to see more and more, especially if they're able to get AI going the way they want to. A lot of you are going to be begging for a job. And those AI centers are going to be right in your neighborhood. And soon, you're not going to be able to afford clean drinking water because of these very centers. Then what? But no, the very muscle that you could have that could be a meaningful push towards the progressive issues that you care about. Instead, you're mocking the very men that could be at the vanguard of a movement. Because I'm going to repeat again, who is going to stand up for a society, fight for a society that they will never have a place in to begin with? You need to think about that instead of sitting here laughing at men who are having trouble making milestones in life. Because if you don't, you're going to come to the realization that what you're needing for that movement is going to be severely lacking. And what's going to be very much lacking are the very men that so many of you look down on. I hope what I said here with this video made some sense. And I hope that those of you who consider yourselves leftists, socialists, progressives, and especially communists, where you want to foster a sense of community, will really start to think about being more inclusive about those who you need in your community. Really think about it. Because whether you want to admit it or not, you need men. You need men in order to help progress this movement forward and correct what is so wrong about this country. Thank you so much once again for listening to Big Dewey J. And you have been listening to what is hopefully the first of many episodes of A Different Shade of Purple. Have a good one.